We're in Napier to away.
So we are. Hey, that did work. Let's log in. Just going through a million steps of authentication.
How many drinks do you reckon would to get me fully drunk?
Based on your reaction on Thursday, probably about 7.
7. That doesn't seem like much, so I must be a lighter.
I mean, define fully drunk.
Mitchell was saying I was tipsy and not drunk the other day. I couldn't tell the difference because I've never been drunk.
Given the fact he had 3 and he was ready to pass out on my couch, I'd say, yeah.
Fair enough.
It was your first time doing so.
I was just very amazed because it really felt like nothing I've ever felt before. Which is weird saying because it's just being tipsy.
Welcome to drugs.
It's like, my head really felt like disconnected from my body.
I really hope the microphone's not turned on.
Oh, it is.
Oh,
When I say it is, there's the one that's just. What is it?
I hope no one can identify
There's
me.
a sneaky microphone somewhere on this desk.
Is it on your label?
No, my lapel microphone's turned off, but
Okay.
there's another microphone somewhere. It's probably just here that's picking up ambient noise.
Okay.
Sessions. Secure.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's working. All right, week 11. We're almost there, people. Let's just start off with all the usual administrative stuff. Now, for the time being, it is just the 3 of us, because I am also keeping track of who's watching live. So it's literally just the 3 of. Well, I mean, the daylight savings thing doesn't help.
Right.
Because it's 6:45 in China at the moment, and I don't know what India's time zone, possibly more than 1, is, but I assume that they're at +7 or +6.
It's 4:14. in the morning in India.
So they're at they're UTC +6 there?
Plus 5:30.
They're 5:30? Wow. I guess I just always get confused. It's deceptive because the whole of China is at +8. So then it's just like, oh, India's just next to China. They're probably like +7 or +6 or something. No, okay, so it's like 4:30 in the morning. So like we don't have anyone from India with us, and I don't blame them. I would value my sleep more as well, and it's probably a bit too early for most people from China, and it's week 11, so.
Well, there's also the 70 people that'll be watching this on Thursday, November 18th.
Yes, they will, and I will probably follow this up with something a bit more concrete and better, because this is mostly just going to be questions for the time being, and a few bits and pieces to get you started. Okay, so programming assignment 3, it's finally available. Yay, we got there, people. What are you doing in programming assignment 3? It's a bit interesting because the book talks about Apache Kafka. Oh, here's the hidden microphone. It was under the book. Okay, so the book talks about Apache Kafka, and it talks about event streams, and then talks about Apache Kafka and the unified log and everything, which is fantastic. And then it continues on to just not use Kafka's inbuilt stream processing libraries when it does that. Or at least to some extent does some weird mix of third-party libraries when it does that. We're just going to use Kafka's like normal APIs just straight out of the box for this assignment. So yeah, that's what's going on there. Pulled a bunch of GPS data from some things and packaged it up, and yeah, you get to play that data back and see what happens. So
I noticed there's no mention of design, like, at all in the assignment.
yes. Well, I mean, if we think back to, the first assignment where it was based on, oh crap, now we're going back a ways.
Finite state machines.
Yeah, it was based on finite state machines, so you actually had to plan the system out with finite state machines. And the second assignment was obviously very heavily Petri-net based, so that required a lot of planning with Petri-nets. This one, it would probably be good to see some either marble diagrams, so the timeline style diagrams, or some flowchart models of how you're going to hook up your event streams. But I'm not going to be as fussed with this one because it's a bit more abstract. But I think once you get everything set up on your... So I think that the general deal with this assignment is it's going to be a bit of a pain to get Apache Kafka set up in the first place, and it's probably going to be a bit of a pain to get all your class paths and everything set up to get the Java libraries and everything working. Once you have that working, then you also have to sort of get your head around the whole API, which is interestingly documented. It's what I've spent the last while working through myself. But once you get sort of through all of the setup stages, the actual implementation is going to be reasonably straightforward. I say reasonably because you get to apply all of the stuff that we talked about over the last few weeks in terms of all of the different operations that we used in Sodium. Those same operations, albeit possibly with different names, all exist within Kafka, and Kafka can do a bunch of more stuff on top of the Sodium operations because it has its unified log. The unified log that Kafka provides allows us to do things like, in the course of our stream processing, not just look at a single event, but look back at a sequence of events that have occurred before. So we can say, okay, well, let's perform a stream operation on every event that has occurred in the last 10 minutes. There's a mechanism for just doing that with a single command. It's just a matter of getting your head around what you need to do to make that all happen. Once you do, this should not be that much code to write.
Right,
Yeah.
So if you're expecting design at all, did it have to come before coding, or is it not like assignment?
I'm going to be less fussed about that this time. It would be good to see it before coding. And actually, I think it does still say that in the assignment specifications. So I'm going to be slightly less fussed about it, but it would be good to see you thinking about everything before just smashing out code.
Okay, sure.
Yep.
So it has to be there and before coding still?
Yep.
Okay, sure.
Workshops, they're this week. We'll have plenty of time to mess around with Kafka code and setups if you're getting stuck on your own Kafka setups and whatnot. And exam information, it's there, it's available in my uni. I was hoping we would have more people in the live stream to ask questions about the exam right now, because a few people have asked the same sort of question on Piazza, and I am unclear where people are getting confused. Which is fair, because I think there are still, well, the answer is, here is all the information the university has provided about the exam, and here is all of the EDC specific information, and that's been the answer that I've been posting, but it seems like maybe there's something missing, but I'm not entirely clear what the missing thing is.
It looked like one person was asking when the online exam course will be released.
Right. When does the online exam course go live? Oh, actually, I might be able to answer that. Okay, give me a second. If they want to know when the actual online, the exam course shell goes live, I think I can answer that question. Provided that... Oh, what is that? Nope. That's the timetable for replacement exams. Need to have my replacement exams done by then. Nope, not that, it's not that. Okay, sometimes they put it in my calendar, but it doesn't appear to be in my calendar, so I can't tell you exactly when my uni course will go live for that. But I imagine, just off the top of my head, that the online exam shells would be going up in the week before exams start, so at the start of SWAT week. That's what I would guess, which is 2 weeks from now. That's just a guess off the top of my head, not 100% sure. It should probably say in the university-wide exam information, one would hope, roughly when you can expect those to go up. If you're not sure if you are correctly signed up, please contact Ask Adelaide and they will help hook you up. Okay. All right. So before we get into the basics that I have here, does anyone have any questions about anything Kafka related to start off with?
Yeah, why is the online book so weirdly laid out?
Which online book?
The livebook.manning.com.
Oh, just their website?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think... Did we already have this discussion? It might have been someone else who had this discussion. Basically, as far as I understand it, it is that publisher's. So the question was, why is the live ebook format for the books that we're using so weirdly laid out? And the answer is because it's meant to be through a paywall portal thing. That the publisher uses for all of their stuff. It just so happens that they've made the entire book available for free without needing to pay for it. So you're looking at it through I would log in and it would let me read the book for 15 minutes portal, and then it would like shut me off kind of deal. But it would give me full access if I already had the book. It's their DRM platform basically, if that makes sense. Because that would be too easy, and they do want you to buy the book if you want to just print it to PDF. I guess that's their little incentive there to actually buy the book. They're like, we'll make it available for you for free, but we won't make it easy. Or we'll make it like weird, and then you'll want to buy the PDF, and by gosh, it worked. Yeah, I wish it was available straight through the library, but evidently our library doesn't have an agreement with Manning Publications. Or at least the Ex Libris, I think it is, the library system that we use, doesn't have one. So, any other questions or thoughts on anything course related before we get into any of this?
I think so.
Okay, all right. Let's take a look. So, that's too many things. Okay. And the terminal and... Okay, so the first things first that we want to get started with when we want to get started with Kafka is we actually want to get it installed. So in terms of getting it installed, that's going to vary from platform to platform. But once you've got it installed, in order to start working with it, you're going to need to gain access to all of the various different jar files that the installation puts, and they put them in different locations depending on your platform. So in my Linux system, I was fortunately able enough to install this through a package manager, so I didn't actually have to install the raw files that they provide, but it might actually be easier for you to install the raw files that they provide, because then you know exactly where everything is when you install it, and you don't just get like, it's installed, oh crap, where is everything? So for me, I was able to find all of the files that I needed in my system in /user/ share/java, and it was in Kafka. And you can see alongside there, so in most Linux systems you'll find /user/share/java is where most of your third-party Java classes that are not included in the native language get installed to. So you might recognize in there JUnit and Hamcrest so if you tried to install JUnit using your package manager, if you were using a package manager and you were like, okay, how do I add this to my class path and where the heck is it in my system and everything, okay, that's where it probably ended up, and you would add the jar file to your class path there. So there's a lot of different components that make up the default Kafka installation, as you can see by the raw number of jar files that are present there. And there's probably a lot of overlap with base system, various other libraries that have been packaged into the whole lot. So a simple way to add, so you could potentially go through and modify your class path to include all of these, but a simple way is when you're running and compiling to use the class path flag. So if I just pull up the files here that I've been working with, and you can kind of see it down the bottom there. I'll just copy that. Okay, so using the class path flag here, I've got my current directory and then a colon, depending on your platform, it might be a semicolon instead of colon, and then just the path /star, and that's going to pick up all of the jar files in the directory for me, and that's all nice. You might be able to add that directly to the class path variable, but I haven't played around with it enough to figure that out, so that's what's working for me at the moment. And that should be able to compile any of the Kafka libraries and things that you need when you're building up a basic Kafka program. So let's take a look. When you're working with the Kafka streams, there are sort of three basic components that you'll need. You need a way to get the data into Kafka in the first place. Now, the data can go into Kafka from any variety of different sources. If you are loading the data in from Java, then you need a producer. That's what they call it in the Kafka API. And the producer connects to Kafka and allows you to submit data into Kafka. You can also produce into Kafka from outside, from anything that can interface with Kafka. You can use a producer, generic producer. So, for example, yes?
Is that related to like PetriNet, producer, and consumers?
No, that's just the terminology that they've used. I mean, they're kind of related to PetriNet producers and consumers in general, because it's like, okay, a producer is just something that like produces data into a system, and a consumer is something that consumes data from a system. So in that very generic sense, yeah, they are related, but that's about as far as the relation goes. I'm just going to cancel that. So we'll look at the code for that in just a second, but we also have, for example, they have command line versions of the, I know it's right down the bottom of the screen, it's not very useful, but we have command line versions of the producer and the consumer that we can use to just put data straight into Kafka and also to retrieve data back out of Kafka. So if I open up another tab, like so, whoa,
Okay, cool.
that was more than I expected.
Then new tab would
Come
allow
back.
251 terminals.
I just wanted to, okay, split view left, right, that's what I wanted. Okay. All right, so if I go ahead, so we want to start Kafka. If your system doesn't start Kafka by default, you need to start Kafka. And we also need a consumer. Okay, so, and they need to be sharing a topic. Now, Kafka likes to have an additional step where you explicitly register a topic beforehand, and if you want, you can also specify a schema, which is like you define how your data is structured ahead of time. But it does also deal okay with unstructured data, so you can just say, all right, hello Kafka, here's a topic and here's some data, and throw stuff at it, and anything that is connected to that topic will then receive that data. So it's just going to broker messages to a given topic from a producer to a consumer, and you can connect as many producers in as you like, and you can have as many consumers listening as you like. So if I have that. Okay, and that was because I ran some stuff earlier, which is why those numbers came in. But if I were to type in, and you can see that it's hopped across there. It's like, okay, well it's not like it's, you're like, okay, that's not particularly impressive. You can input and you get output back out. So we can do the same thing with our Java program. So if we have a Java program that is a producer, then if we run that and point it at the right topic and we point it at our Kafka instance, then it's going to, didn't run the Java program, run the same command that I just ran again. Okay, take two. And it's going to spit stuff out into the Kafka instance.
So is that communicating across two different processes, or?
Yes. So we have the Java process that runs, that connects to the Kafka instance or the Kafka server that's running on my system. So Kafka is designed to be a distributed, it's designed for scalability and distributed and cloud and all of that crazy stuff. So it has a whole bunch of ridiculous features that are just like way beyond anything that we're remotely looking at. Nice. But at its most fundamental level, it's a basic message broker, and we can do streams with it, which is what we're interested in. So in this case, I've run a Java program. The Java program connects to Kafka and sends a bunch of data to it in the right format, and then that data gets replicated out to the consumer that is listening to it. And similarly, we can write our own consumer in Java by interfacing with the consumer API. Let's take a look at the producer code that we have. Wherever I hit it. That's not it, that's not it, that's not it. Did I put it over? Nope, I did not put it over there. Again, there's a bunch of setup stuff, but ultimately the code itself is quite simple. So we have our imports. This is just a very basic class with a main and nothing else piece of code. We set up the properties for the connection to the Kafka instance. We tell it a bit about what we're about to send through. In this case, we're saying, okay, well, first of all, connect to the server on my local machine at port 9092, which is the default port, and it's the port that I'll expect that you're all working off of when I run your code. We give it a serializer. This one's important because it basically defines how Java is going to send data to the Kafka instance, whether it's string of text, like plain text, or is it like byte, just like raw binary byte data that it's going to try and send through, or numbers or something else. And we explicitly have to declare the key and the value. So Kafka works with key value pairs. Everything that you just saw us doing like a moment ago, we were just sending the values without keys, and it's like, okay, that's fine, and it takes the values, but it does allow us to do key value pairs. So in this case, what we are doing is we're creating a new producer, and we're just looping over the numbers from 1 to 100, and we are sending them to the topic, or the channel, depending on how you look at it, with the key of B plus a number, and then the number. And if we tell the consumer to actually display the keys that are being looked at, so if I go back over here, if we display the keys that we're looking at, server, and I think it is. Oh, I'm gonna have to ask for help here. Help. Okay, and so these are all the things that we can. These are all the important things that we can mess around with. So print key and print timestamp are two useful ones that you might find. So double dash property print.key. And because we have the unified log, we get to specify when we start the consumer where it starts from in the log's position. So you'll see one of the flags that we passed to this consumer was from beginning, which allowed it to just like replay everything from the start of the log. I think by default Kafka's log goes for 1 hour, so it's going to play back all of the messages that were sent to that particular topic in the last hour in order. We can also grab the timestamp as well if we're interested in that. But the keys can be useful for filtering and grouping messages together. That's especially useful for when we start windowing streams. Okay. So I do timestamp. We need to do the property flag again. And it's going to replay everything again, but this time it's also got timestamps attached to it, which you might recognize that as a milliseconds. Is it milliseconds or seconds? Not sure if it's milliseconds or seconds, but you recognize that as epoch time. Hopefully you recognize that as epoch time. The consumer is very much the same in that it's just a basic set of properties that you set up. The only difference between the producer and the consumer is that the producer is something that you explicitly invoke to send things when you want to send them, and the consumer is one that you can like have it sort of polling and listening to and reacting to events when they come through. And you can use that to take events out of the system. And the middle bit, that's where things get interesting, because you have the streams, and we have, again, all of our sodium, many of the same sodium operations, albeit some of them with different names, that we can connect together. So, and we can do that entirely independently of the producer and the consumer. So you'll see that in the assignment, we have a producer that you're building and a consumer that you're building entirely separately from each other. You're running them entirely separately from each other, and they communicate through Kafka, which is running entirely separately from both of them. And then on top of that, you'll have a stream management program that's running separately from the rest of that, and that's going to be picking up data from streams coming in from producers, and it's going to be performing the stream transformations on that data, and then that's going to result in new streams of data coming back out, which then can be picked up by consumers. So you're going to end up with like a whole bunch of streams that can be picked up by any consumer. Some of them are intermediate streams that you won't actually be using, but will be part of like the processing pipeline that your data was going through.
Does Kafka just deal with those streams as it receives them, or do we need to be thinking about how we're going to handle the synchronization of the streams?
Kafka deals with the streams as it receives them, but that said, you should be writing your, at the very least, you should be writing your producer code so that it's not dependent on anything that the producers are running asynchronously in the assignment configuration. So you will have them all running simultaneously. So your producer implementation ideally shouldn't have anything that could result in weird race conditions. But there shouldn't need to be anything that would result in race conditions in your producer code.
So that's a bit more out of scope.
No, it's all in there. Yeah. Oh, we have someone on the live stream. Welcome. I'm just going to upgrade, different computer, different screen. Okay. Now, unfortunately, that's about where all of my code demonstrations end, because I've been busy making sure the assignment was all ready and good to go and testing all of that. So if you have any questions about anything, now's a good time to ask those questions. And
do you think 2.5 weeks is going to be enough time?
oh yeah, 2.5 weeks is going to be enough time. Yeah. Realistically, 1 week should be enough time.
1 week, week 11, or 1 week, week 3?
Wait, sorry, when you say 1 week, week 11, or 1 week, week 3?
Course demand.
Oh, course demand. Oof.
Like 1 week while we're doing with all our other assignments and preparing for Ingenuity, or 1 week if...
Maybe 2 weeks while you're dealing with all of your other assignments and all of that stuff, as opposed to one week when the course is just getting started. Yeah. Shinhao, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? So I am going to be following this up with some additional material and exercises for this week's workshops, in addition to the resources that are currently available, albeit the resources that are currently available are the book and the APIs and all of that crazy documentation. So I'll be making sure that there are some concrete examples for everyone to work off of, including a proper consumer and stream example, in addition to the producer example that we've looked at just now. And if no one has anything else that they'd like to ask or talk about, doesn't have to be Kafka related, can be anything course related. If not, then we will leave it there for this week. Next week is going to be a review lecture, so if you have anything course related that you want to bring in terms of questions or various bits and pieces, do so. We will work through a practice exam during that session. If people don't have things that they want to specifically focus on, when I say work through a practice exam, most likely we'll be working through one of the past exams that you can already see on my uni, albeit with the irrelevant questions being completely ignored and replaced with some more relevant questions for this year's version of the course. And I think that's just about it, if we don't have anything else for any other questions for the moment. How do you have any more questions? Okay. Oh, where are we? Oh, there we are.
Oops. W11. It's showed on the batch.
Week 11.
Oh, that's it?
Oh.
Sorry, when you in the batch terminal thing? Did I say W11, I think?
Yes, that was the name of my folder.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I thought it was something fancy.
No, that's just the name of the folder.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And yes, we'll see you next week and in workshops. Microphone cut out. See you next week and in workshops.